It's January 28th, the anniversary of the blizzard of 77, a unique weather disaster in Western New York history going back at least through the 1870s. I'm meteorologist Don Paul. Yes, it was unique. And welcome to my podcast, Don Paul's Bits o' Blather on Weather, Climate, and Some Humor. The precursor or antecedent conditions prior to the onset of that blizzard late on the morning of January 28th were also unique. There had been an unbroken stream of polar air masses and lake effect and synoptic snow, adding up to tremendous amounts of low density loose snow, not just on the frozen surface of Lake Erie, which froze on December 14th, an all time record, but on the land of all 8 Western New York counties and even beyond. Typically, over a time duration of that length, there would have been a couple of thaw periods in which the snow would have had a chance to congeal and stabilize and be less vulnerable to being picked up by the wind, but there was no thaw during that period. It was brutally cold day after day, week after week, and the snow remained loose. There had already been some strong wind situations in which National Guard troops had to have been mobilized to assist the city of Buffalo in plowing operations. And by the time the blizzard event unfolded, much of Buffalo's city snowplow fleet had been depleted from wear and tear, with only 39 plows available for duty. And while there had been some warning from the National Weather Service of some awful weather conditions that would be unfolding during the late morning and afternoon of the 28th, the full impact of the high winds, plummeting temperatures, and blowing snow was understated. It, after all, had not happened this way then or since. And when this cold front went through, pretty much on schedule at 11:30, a blizzard warning had been raised at 9 a.m. that morning, despite some winter storm type warnings preceding that. However, because those less severe warnings had already been commonplace during that winter, most people went to their jobs, went to school, unaware of just how terrible the conditions would befall the region once that front went by. Hour after hour, 13 hours of zero or next to zero visibility at the airport, frequent gusts over 60, and plummeting temperatures. Ahead of the front, typical midwinter cold, and behind the front, brutal cold combined with unimaginable wind chills that became a threat to life almost immediately for anyone stranded in the snow. 9 people froze to death in their cars. Many were victims to hypothermia, pedestrians trapped in the streets. The winds persisted at their highest level for 13 hours, but remained strong to high over 5 days, producing high density drifts up to 30 and 40 feet against structures of difficult to move high density drifts on what had once been low density snow, with federal troops being called out by President Carter to assist in this disaster which befell Western New York. The brutal cold and the blowing snow caused some school districts to be closed for a 2-week period. The storm became so well known that it was a nightly appearance in the Johnny Carson monologue, where his writers managed to come up with jokes which probably didn't ring very funny here in Western New York. For me, I was working in Wichita, Kansas at KAKE TV at the time, reading these national weather summaries every 6 hours, thinking, boy, that would be cool to be there, unknowing just how horrific this event was. And yes, there are people who have great stories of events which happened to them during this period. The overall impact was unique. Could it ever happen again? It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. Very unlikely, in fact, because we don't get prolonged periods of one polar air mass after another in this era of accelerated global warming. We get quick episodic outbreaks, such as the recent lake effect snow period in the previous week, and also during the Christmas 2022 blizzard. That was a short episodic disaster, with warmer temperatures returning the very next week. So that lessens the possibility. But as recently as the end of February 2015, we were set up had the right conditions come along. That was the coldest month on Buffalo record, with a mean temperature of 10.9 degrees, an all-time monthly low. At the start of the blizzard of 77, there were 59 inches of snow on the ground at the airport. At the end of February, there were 22 inches of low density snow on the ground. And had a high wind event unfolded with that much powdery snow on the ground, we could again have faced a massive ground blizzard. It didn't happen, but it could. The good news here is there is absolutely nothing like that showing up in any remote scenario in the extended range data at this time. So I won't say it's impossible, but it's pretty unlikely we will ever have a ground blizzard event to compare with the blizzard of 77. Thanks for listening this far. Please share, please follow this podcast, now available on virtually every podcast platform. Just type in the name of the podcast and it will come up.